Hello, everyone. This is The Register, brought to you by Scale Computing. Today, we're here to talk about a success story from the Edge, how one of the UK's largest gaming operators scored big with edge computing. Today on the panel, we have myself, Elena Perez, I'm with The Register, Dave Demlow from Scale Computing, and also Jason Green from Genting Casinos UK. Dave, could you tell us a little bit about yourself today?
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. I'm the Vice President of Product Management at Scale Computing, so my role is working with customers, working with our engineering team, and crafting the roadmap for Scale Computing, edge computing being a significant focus for the company. I've been with Scale in this role for going on about 9 years, and prior to that, been in a number of other software infrastructure and IT product companies. So thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, Dave. And Jason, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi there. Hi, everybody. I've been working for Genting for about 2.5 years now as a senior systems engineer, which entails exactly what it sounds, really. Looking after the systems, all our back-end systems and front-end casino systems, with a particular focus on a project to replace our entire edge computing estate in the casinos.
Just a small project there.
Yeah, tiny. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I've been doing infrastructure for about 30 years now.
Excellent. So you've seen a lot of changes over the years, I'm sure.
A couple.
Right. Great. Excellent. Well, we're excited to have you both on board. Just a quick look at the agenda. We're going to start off by talking about the situation, get some insight from Genting UK. Then we're going to talk about what the edge is, finding the right edge, how to implement, and then living on the edge, which we'll get. If you're old enough to remember Aerosmith, you might get that earworm for a little while. And finally, some advice from the edge. So let's get started by hearing from Jason, Genting Casino UK's story. If you could tell us a little bit about the company and give us some context here.
Yeah, sure. Genting UK, it's one of the UK's largest leisure and entertainment businesses, part of the larger Genting Group based in Malaysia, which has a large conglomerate, including Resorts World properties around the world. They entered the market in 2006 and have steadily bought, refurbished and built brand new premises that offer customers entertainment, gambling facilities, obviously because of the casino link.
Right.
But beyond that, we've also got 37 casinos in the UK, including several with sports bars. We have the Resorts World complex in Birmingham, which is very impressive. That's a full entertainment retail complex. And we also got an online presence with the gentingcasino.com and gentingbet.com sportsbook website.
Okay, great. So, one thing that would help is to have us understand, what led you to the situation that you're in, the challenges that Genting Casino UK faced, and what you were looking for to solve those challenges.
Yeah, sure. We had a legacy system on site, consisting generally in each casino of 3 VMware servers, not linked together with vCenter. It was difficult to manage and didn't really support our aim. From the top of the business, I should explain that we have customer well-being as our top priority. It comes from the very, very top.
Well-being, gotcha.
Yeah, we've implemented systems to support safer gambling initiatives, and we're the only casino in the UK to currently do this in a computerized way. And having 3 separate servers with no resilience between them is obviously not going to support that particularly well. So we set out as part of a hardware refresh across the estate to improve that situation, give us on-site resilience, give us the ability to manage performance.
Right.
As you can imagine, the performance requirements change throughout a working day. Different requirements at different times of the day.
Is that based on volume? And
it's based on, we base it on footfall. There'll be times of the day where it's quieter when we do reporting and stuff like that. So different systems have different loads throughout the day. So it'd be useful to be able to manage resources in such a way that supports that, the limited hardware that by necessity trying to keep costs under control we're going to have on site. There was no on-site backup. Everything was backed up centrally, but that clearly leads to issues around speed of restore and that sort of stuff. Right. And we've also got no on-site IT expertise on our casinos, other than sort of the remote control of telling somebody what to do. There's nobody who's IT qualified on site, so it needs to, and whatever we look for needs to be easy to manage.
Gotcha. And I understand that sort of that ability to have someone on site or work remotely, that is a big piece of what's necessary right now.
That was the major thing, and this is true, I think, of any organization that has an edge computing requirement. You're not going to be putting an IT team on each remote site because it's just impractical and very expensive.
Right. Great.
And also expensive to, I assume, to travel to these locations. I think you're within a drive, at least a day drive, or a quick mass transit connection to those, but still time consuming if you have to go on site, or any of your central IT people have to go.
Very much so. Yeah.
Right. Those costs are going to add up quickly. Right.
Okay.
All right. Super. Well, with that, now that we've set the stage, Dave, there's a lot of talk about edge computing right now, a lot of buzz. It would be great to get your perspective, your view, and Scale Computing's view of, what exactly is it? What are we looking at here?
Sure. So this would be our definition, and it's intentionally broad and inclusive. But on one level, edge computing is any computing that is placed outside, the four walls of a central data center, whether that's a central corporate owned data center or whether that's a public cloud based data center. And generally the reasons for doing this are things to keep the IT processing close to where the resources are, to where the where the edge in terms of user and machines and equipment might be in many edge use cases. Often, for reasons like Jason mentioned, it's to maintain high availability uptime. Often it's due to either the performance or the latency or the reliability of accessing remote resources, or the cost of networking to access remote resources from a central location. Sometimes there's legal reasons, compliance, data sovereignty issues in some cases that you don't want certain portions of data to move out of the local facility to a central data center or to a public cloud. So it may or may include any of all of these. It could be large amounts of data that just is physically impossible to move for central processing. It could be this high performance bridge for local analytics, data ingest, pre-processing before the results are sent to a central site or a cloud for analysis. One of the things we see and didn't necessarily apply for Genting here was often if these are retail edge environments or industrial IoT manufacturing environments, they have small footprint, cost, environmental requirements that many cases standard IT can't meet. Jason, when we go in a little deeper, they were able to use some of our off-the-shelf prepackaged hyperconverged appliances and deploy those out in edge locations. Many other of the edge customers that are using Scale or that we're working with currently, we actually are able to work with them on tiny micro form factor devices that go under a retail store counter or connect onto a machine on a factory floor. So all these things kind of fall into edge and maybe requirements of various edge computing use cases.
Great. That's great. So with that, maybe we can talk a little bit now about Genting UK's experience, Jason. You understand that this is a solution you're looking for. What what was your next step in terms of choosing a vendor? Did you know, yes, we're going for edge computing? Was it just something that you needed to decide? Love to get your insight there.
Yeah, I think our business model, similar to what Dave was saying, because we're a retail environment, effectively, it's important that should we lose comms links, and we've got resilient comms links, but there's always something that will take them all down, that we can carry on working in each site as an island until everything comes back up. So it's important to have edge computing kind of sells itself into there. If you lose your links, you've lost a central system. So,
right.
The business model demands an edge computing solution anyway. And we started from the point of view that we would look at replacing like for like. But then we sort of thought, well, what would be ideal? And at the time, we were using SimpliVity in our data centers. Don't like to name drop other vendors, but they were there, and it was something we could see, and we could see a value in having something similar, the same sort of idea, but that particular vendor were ruled out very, very quickly because of very high licensing and hardware costs. So we sort of took that idea and ran with it and see whether we could come in at the sort of prices we were looking at. And we went to market leaders, and again ruled out because of very high ongoing costs, usually because of VMware. We came to label it as the VMware tax. That's probably a little harsh, but you know the thing. You got ongoing licensing costs.
The licensing costs.
Yeah. And we then cast our net a little wider, and we started asking smaller vendors, and most came back with wholly inappropriate solutions. We had a lot of sort of promising to be able to get to the numbers that we were asking for, and then when the quote came in, you're sort of 50% higher. But Scale weren't like that. They actually came back and they were, completely honest and said, yeah, we think we can get to those numbers. And they came in and they showed us. We looked at another couple of vendors as well, and we went through an intensive test phase. Quickly ruled out the other two that we looked at because they weren't quite what we were looking for, and we didn't think they'd do the job sufficiently well. We then set up in our test lab a dummy casino. We put all the same load that we put into a standard casino, and we ran all that on Scale, and we were very, very happy with what we saw. And we were pleasantly surprised with quite a few of the features that we got that we weren't really expecting to find at the price point we were looking at.
Excellent. What were some of those features?
The pleasant surprises were the snapshots, the speed and simplicity of the snapshot and cloning system on Scale, as well as the flexibility of the scheduling and retention options really impressed us. The speed of recovery from a snapshot to a clone of that snapshot is incredible. It really is. It really made us think about a much wider deployment across the business potentially in the future. We saw this as an edge computing solution, and it can be so much more. We could move it into the data center on a larger scale. But particular things that I know that the other guys in our team were impressed with, the ability to mount snapshots of VMs as a drive on a different VM. Okay. So we could take files off whilst not losing the server that was currently running. That was particularly cool.
Right. That's quite an adaptation from what you had earlier.
Oh yeah, there's a different world. We actually find it difficult to believe that we're running something that's so different.
Right. I love the idea of the test casino. Do people get to win and lose there too?
We have simulations to put the same sort of loads in that we envisage throughout a working day. So
excellent.
It's pretty cool.
Thanks for that insight, Dave. So obviously you've done a few of these, right? So it's great hearing Jason's perspective on how their vendor selection process went. Do you have anything, you've worked with other companies, anything to add to that? Any best practices that you've seen from your perspective?
Well, yeah, I mean, all sorts of best practices, and I think we'll talk about kind of high-level business stuff later. If I recall, Jason, and jump in, I think you did a pretty exhaustive, part of your testing wasn't just happy day, normal stuff, but if I recall some pulling power supplies and, some downright evil things and proving, in fact, that the system would be resilient and recover. I'm fairly sure you'd done that early on, and that's a very common thing. We would encourage people to try those things out, and, we have seen many competitors, that just aren't designed for that. And I don't know what the power situation is in your casinos. I presume it's better than, a chain of grocery stores or things like that. But, we hear in these edge use cases where, you're not in a climate control, power control data center environment in all cases. Those kinds of resiliency that's just been built into our product are pretty key. And it's great to hear, the snapshots in people who have, used legacy VMware tools like that. I mean, snapshots are kind of, limiting and inflexible. We design snapshots to be kind of an inherent feature with very, very minimal no impact. We use them for cloning and for rapidly provisioning VMs. We use them for offsite replication and rollback, and allow things that like testing patches of systems before you have to put them into production. So yeah, I don't know, Jason. Do you recall any of the the most evil things you did in your evaluation?
Yeah, absolutely. But we do count those as normal things because that's somebody, as you say, we do have sort of it's a reasonable comms room, but I think it would be fairly typical of an edge environment. It's not the best. Space is usually at a premium, particularly retail premises. Because it's a cost rather than earning money. But yeah, we pulled power plugs out, we pulled network cables out, we did all sorts of stuff, and we noted the recovery from all of those things. And yeah, it performed faultlessly. It's exactly what we wanted. We were quite surprised actually that we were able to get, we sort of put this is exactly what we want. And Scale came up and delivered it, which was quite a pleasant surprise in this day and age.
Excellent. Yeah, great to hear. So, so now that we've gone through the choosing a vendor stage and you've made your decision, let's talk about the implementation. I love this slide. We've got some. Is this you over here, Jason?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, in a room full of servers, and there's the production line from the pallets up the stairs to the room. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama here, so but good drama. So, would love to hear. It sounds like the vendor selection process sort of leads itself right into the implementation process. So, Jason, what did it look like for your team? How did you prepare for it?
Well, part of the testing phase was actually a migration of our existing casino test systems onto Scale hardware, and that was we had to pick up a few things. There's always going to be something that you've missed, or there's a better way of doing things, and we got those out of the way fairly early. I certainly think by the end of the first live site that we had established a really robust process, and there have been small changes throughout, just minor things that sort of make it a bit more slick, a bit, a little bit less downtime. I think that the best we've done on downtime was 5 minutes, which was actually at one of our largest casinos. So we were quite impressed with that.
For the migration of actually
the entire migration of we had the major casino system that runs all of the slot machines was down for no more than 5 minutes.
That's great to hear. I mean, that's one of the barriers to a lot of people, making major infrastructure changes like that is, I know I need to do it, but, beyond even cost, putting it off is like, what's the migration path? Is it going to, am I going to schedule a bunch of nights and weekends to go do it and things like that? So that's
right.
We do it over a 24-hour period. But the first few hours of that is installing the physical hardware.
Right.
We then use HC3 Move software to migrate the critical systems with minimal downtime. That they come across live migrate for the most part, with just a short reboot at the end, and that has been a lifesaver. That's really made the whole thing much more slick. For non-critical systems, we do slightly more manual export and import, and that's simply from our side to reduce the costs, the extra software that we'd have to buy to do that. But even that, is simplicity itself, and it takes longer to export it from VMware than it does to bring it back into scale. And then we're back up and running.
Yeah. So for others, I mean, just to give a picture, I mean, HC3 is able to take the VMDK files that, VM that was running on a legacy VMware environment, shut it down, grab those VMDK files, convert them, and import them right into HC3 and boot them up with, in that case, because it is a shut it down on VMware, import the data, then turn it on. There can be a little more downtime than with the move tool, but we have a variety of options. Yeah, just depending on the particular application and what the appropriate move technology is. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, I mean, I guess there are different options. Are there any other scenarios, Dave, that you want to go into in terms of other options?
Well, I mean, those cover, I think, the vast majority of the cases. I mean, we also do, I guess one of the things we do see in many edge customers is they have kind of templated applications, so almost stateless, where there's very little data, and they, these can be things from, just common IP services, that they need to deploy, or maybe in retail, it's, the POS system without the data, and, they're able to use our cloning, our replication, our snapshot technology to kind of mass deploy templates out, so in this case, they're not migrating an existing app. It's kind of they're deploying a net new application, getting it up and running, and then maybe connecting it into the database that, houses the data later. So lots of different ways these larger scale implementations happen.
It's funny you should say that, actually, Dave, because we are actually just doing that now.
Awesome. Yes.
That's
and
right.
it's built in.
on a new POS system. We're doing exactly that. We're deploying,
and that's a free capability built in. That's also an area, Jason, we'll talk offline. We're working on some orchestration tools and processes that might even be able to get that down to here's one infrastructure as code deploy script that pushes make sure every site has this version of this application. Those are the kinds of things we're working with our current edge customers on, simplifying beyond, now that we've kind of solved the how do you keep IT infrastructure at site A, site B, site C up and running with minimal care and feeding. Now we're kind of, continuing to bolster our capabilities to, how do we let Jason sit, in the one central location and make sure that, the right apps are there, the right versions of the apps are there. It's easy to roll out, new things and so forth. So.
Fantastic. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, I guess, when we've already talked a little bit about some success metrics, I think. I mean, I think that 5-minute downtime in terms of implementation is a really great number. Dave, so from your perspective, what are IT teams looking for in terms of success? How are they evaluating success from the edge? Would love to get your perspective there.
Yeah. Well, from our perspective as a vendor, I mean, hearing customers like Jason describe their experience, that's our our measure of success. And we do hear a lot of similar things. It's hey, we used to once a month have to roll a truck out to site ABC to take care of these things. We haven't had to go out there in a year. We had this new application that we didn't even know how we were going to deploy or where it was going to run or what we needed. And wow, sure enough, we just rolled it out, added it to HC3. In some cases, it's even a little more complicated. It's like, well, we didn't have enough compute or storage resources, so we just bolted on another HC3 node, scaled out our existing HC3 cluster to accommodate that, and put it on there. And it's just inherently gets all the same high availability and so forth as our other apps. I mean, that's once people kind of and different organizations are different maturity levels here, once they kind of get away from thinking we're going to deploy an app on an infrastructure and deal with that as a project to, okay, we have a platform, and with these services, these these capabilities that we're going to leverage across multiple applications, and we're going to build, our next generation apps, are just going to plug in and go on this platform, and we're going to scale it out and evolve it and so forth. I think when people get to kind of that level, that it's, it doesn't have to be a major project. Every time there's some new business function that needs to be solved or business problem. I mean, that's kind of an aha moment, and makes IT departments look great.
Right. We love aha moments. Yeah. Jason, from your perspective, I mean, this has been in place for a little while now. We got a sense of things going well. Is there anything specific, or, what are you looking at this point? And, what did you look at initially?
Yeah, well, we've noticed performance improvements across the board. Wouldn't be able to put exact numbers on those, but locally hosted applications are noticeably faster, according to our non-IT staff. And that's always good, because if a user can notice something, it's a lot faster. I think everybody listening would agree with that. The small improvements never get noticed. From the IT department point of view, our objectives have been met with simpler management and recovery. We've had no live failures yet, but data recoveries have been quicker than recovering from central backup. We've had a few of those, and our DR tests have proven successful, with very, very quick recovery times. And snapshot and cloning, have already proven their worth several times over. We've done several things where we've wanted to go back, or we've known that we were probably going to break something, so we snapshotted it just beforehand, and everything just comes back. And the amount of time taken to do that means that most people don't even notice that the server actually went down and went back to an older version. It's really, really fast.
Yeah, that's kind of the dream, right?
Yeah,
It went down, right? When no one
Absolutely.
notices that it went down, right? That's great. And I guess, one of the questions obviously this performance is going to affect the overall business. And I think, do teams beyond, the sort of the folks that are vested daily in IT, operations, are they feeling the changes as well? I mean, you said the users can feel the speed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The local application, which is quite hefty. They can pull records for customers up much quicker, and they can deal with any customer queries based on those much more quickly and more efficiently. And just generally, the whole thing is much snappier. I think it got to the point, to be fair, on older hardware, which will have had a bearing as well, but things were very, sort of clunky and slow, and that isn't the case anymore, and it does make people's life a bit easier.
Excellent. So
one other measurement of success, I was just going to mention to Jason, if I recall, I think, didn't you win an award, Infrastructure Project of the Year, for over this project?
Wow.
Yes, we did, actually. Yeah. So, I forgot that.
Accolades.
Congratulations.
It was a good evening, obviously. But yes, we did. Yeah.
Put on the tuxes, and I didn't get to come out for that to meet you, but no, that's congrats on that.
That's a great a great measure of success. A couple of awards on the shelf, right? Wow, cool. So we've talked a lot about Edge right now and Genting's experience now. Dave, when you think forward and what businesses in general are dealing with, are looking at coming down the pipe in the future, what to expect technologically, data-wise, how do you think Edge fits in there?
Well, I mean, one of the things we're seeing, there's kind of historically, it sounds like Jason and I have both been in IT a long time, this pendulum from centralized, decentralized, and a lot of it's driven by, key applications, things like that. there's definitely, been this cloud trend and push everything possible to the cloud, and there's always going to be a place for public cloud resources. But we're definitely seeing this trend where, for a whole lot of reasons, it's we covered earlier, latency, autonomy, performance, cost, manageability, data sovereigns, things, security. There are more and more applications that people are realizing are suitable, are best suited for running close to users, close to machines, close to in a particular location that they serve. And this is not just kind of existing environments. I mean, I think there was a maybe over tendency to let's try to centralize everything, ignore the user experience. It's easier to centrally manage, but now with hyperconvergence, with edge focused technologies like HC3, you don't have to make that trade-off. So you can put the resources where they really apply, where they fit best, and still get the central manageability, still get the high availability. So it's kind of a win-win. And then, we're kind of looking ahead. Many of the new applications that people are starting to think about, plan for, everything from, video and streaming data analytics, to container-based applications, all those kinds of things. When you kind of look at the problems they're trying to solve, right, are going to have to execute out on the edge close to the data, where they can process very large amounts of data, quickly make decisions that change and immediate influence things that are happening in the site, and they're going to have to do that whether the network is connected and without gobs of bandwidth and things like that. So so we see a lot of pointers kind of leaning towards this architecture, which is why we're putting so much emphasis on these kinds of use cases.
Right. I mean, with so much talk about AI and all of that kind of processing, speed
Absolutely.
is going to be at the utmost importance, and for safety too, I'm sure. Right. When you get into like self-automated cars and that sort of thing, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's really the ultimate edge kind of use case, and points out a lot of things that are going to apply to a wide variety of applications. Through IoT and retail organizations. Self-checkout. I mean, when you start looking at kind of these next wave of applications and what they're going to require, it's going to require a lot of compute. In some cases, a lot of storage, but not always. And that's one of the other interesting things is there's not a cookie cutter. There's not a one recipe that's going to apply to everyone, which is why we've, within Scale, we, have a great core of tech-based technologies. We have a set of appliances that are great building blocks. But we've also, we're willing to work with customers that are deploying these, and if it's custom hardware that's required, custom form factors, fanless, ruggedized, all those kinds of things. We've built a set of core technologies, a software stack that can run on just about anything, and then also building in the centralized manageability, which is one of the key things, is being able to centrally manage, monitor, report, update. Things like, just an inherent thing in our clustered platform is rolling updates. So if we have software updates with new functionality, we can push those out to the remote sites. They can be updated. You could do it middle of the afternoon if you wanted, because we just automatically move the virtual machine workloads around, upgrade one node of the system, move everything back. I mean, users don't even have to know that the actual infrastructure is being updated. So, even planned downtime can be eliminated, can be handled, things like upgrade tasks can be handled remotely. So all those things become important.
Fantastic. And Jason, so when you think about the next 3 to 5 years, do you feel like, are there things that are in your mind? Is the edge solution helping you sort of move in that direction?
I think we were already a big edge user anyway. I think that's what naturally, like I said earlier, that is naturally where we're going to sit because of the nature of our business. And I think it will just be a continuation of that. I can't see a point at which it would ever make sense to move everything centrally.
Right. Makes sense.
We've always thought about it, but as Dave said, it's where the data is, it's where the customers are, it's where we need to continue to work, no matter what. So long as the lights are on in the casino, then our customers will be there, and that's where our systems need to serve them.
Excellent. Well, Thank you. Thank you for your take on your experience, Jason and Dave. We're getting towards the end, so this is a good opportunity to kind of think about, what do we want this audience who's been so kind as to join us today really keep thinking about, what are the key takeaways? Jason, do you want to share some thoughts, any pieces of advice or information that you think would be really good to keep in mind for our audience moving forward?
Yeah, from my own personal point of view, I would say it's important to be realistic about your future requirements. I think a lot of people look at solutions in this sort of arena and get carried away and end up with, a sledgehammer to crack a walnut, to use an analogy.
Right.
And you've got to be realistic about things. We're all under cost pressures, and having something that is scalable, that you can add to, but which meets your requirements now, is important. And I think it's important to make mention of the fact that with scale, we don't have to expand our clusters with the same models of hardware that we're using now. Future models of the hardware will just slot straight into the cluster and continue to work. I think Dave will confirm that.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to get carried away with cool technologies or all that sort of stuff. Be realistic about what you need, because one key factor in defining edge computing, I feel, is value for money for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of leading on from that is complexity is the last thing you need in the edge.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to keep it simple, because otherwise it's unmanageable. And that was a really key factor in what we did, is that the simplicity of it all is there for all to see.
Right. Excellent. And thank you, Jason. Dave, do you want to add some takeaways from your perspective?
Sure. Yeah. To kind of the points up here, plan for growth and expansion. And what we mean here is not like try to, take out the crystal ball and figure out what your world's going to look like in 5 years. Like Jason mentioned, look for a system that lets you buy what you need today. You don't need to over provision. You can add, you can expand, and you can grow. And this extends even the other way. I mean, Jason's doing high availability was an absolute requirement in all of their casinos. One of the things we see a lot in large scale edge environments is not every site is even the same. So we see, and we can accommodate this. We see customers that have some sites that, they're a smaller site. They do need to have some local data processing, but if they're down and for a day and we ship them new infrastructure, that's fine for some sites, or maybe that's fine for some sites today to start. But having a path to say, well, we can start with even a single node system, which is something we support, and they can run all their applications and they can centrally manage that. And then if we determine, hey, we need more resources, we need high availability, so now we want the actual cluster with the automatic failover and all the good things we've been talking about, we even offer kind of that path. So you can get the central management, you can start small, you can buy what you need when you need it and grow. So I think that kind of planning for growth, but not committing or locking yourself in, I think is a good advice and good takeaway. And then, from the vendor, pick a solution provider who's more of a partner than a vendor. And, as I've mentioned a couple of times, in the case of Genting, they were able to use pretty much stuff we have off the shelf. So we're working with them on some, advanced features and capabilities. They had some unique deployment things, the way that they, were deploying their locations that, we're willing to be flexible and custom and work with them on. Earlier edge customers, we've gone as far as, actually, you need a piece of hardware that fits these dimensions inside this rack, can hang up on a wall, needs exactly this much RAM, because you don't want to pay for RAM you don't need, or
right.
So having a partner that can be flexible, work with your needs, and be accommodating, I think is a key. And for our customers, one thing that's a value, and there's people look at this different way, is kind of having the one throat to choke, one back to pat. And we generally do sell appliances. So Jason bought appliances that are scale badged and have our bezel on the front, and whether it's hardware, software, whatever. His call comes to scale and to our support team, and we know exactly what his system is and what he has. We have other very large customers where it may be they're buying their own gear, specialized appliances, loading software. But in any of those cases, the working with a single vendor that knows what you're running, knows what your applications and your use case, and can avoid finger pointing and all those kinds of things, I think is a good advice, especially in very distributed edge environments.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice. Excellent. Well, thank you both for your time, your insight today, your perspective on edge computing. If those of us who've joined us, if you're interested in learning more about edge computing, we have some links on the screen that you can visit. Or if you'd like to speak to someone from Scale Computing, you can also reach out to them at info@scalecomputing. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the window into your experience. And Dave, your expertise on edge computing, very much appreciated. Thought it was a great session. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks all.